This is Dwayne at RealFixesRealFast.com. Today we're working on an 05 Acura. The same problem could be for a Honda. We're talking about a power steering leak. Now in this engine you got your power steering pump right here and your reservoir right there. We're talking about an O-ring that goes right here between this fitting. There's actually a TSB on this, and it's number 07-060, where you can read up on it. The problem is this O-ring leaks air, and it ends up aerating the power steering fluid. To show you what we're talking about, if you look inside the reservoir right now, it's just plain fluid in there. There's no air. But we're going to start this up and run it. Now we started it up, and you can look inside there and you can see that there's air. You can look inside and you can see that there's air now in there. But what I'm going to do is turn the steering wheel back and forth several times. Now after you turn the steering wheel back and forth several times, here's how you can tell it's really this problem. Shut the engine off. And if you wait just a minute, you can see it puking power steering fluid out the top. Of course, that's going to leak down and be your power steering leak. Now you can see it forming the air bubbles in there, and it just overflows out the top. The problem is this O-ring. We're going to show you how to fix it. If you happen to have it, it's a 1/4-inch swivel socket on an extension. Now you might have to just use a socket if you have one, or a gear wrench or something like that, but this 1/4-inch swivel works real good. Now you're not going to be able to get it all the way out because the knuckle on that swivel is just too big. So you just have to stick 2 fingers down there and try and get this screw out, the bolt out. Get your fingers down in there and you can take this bolt out. Now when you pull this out, you're going to lose some fluid. Here's the O-ring we're talking about. Just pull that O-ring off. Now here's the O-ring that came out of it. It's black, and as you're looking at TSB, it talks about an O-ring, and it's orange. That's the replacement. So if you pull yours out and it's black, it means it's never been replaced, or it's been replaced with the wrong O-ring. You need to go and get the actual right O-ring. Now this is an Acura. You can go to Acura or Honda. It comes in a Honda bag, and the part number is 91345 RDA A01. Now just visually look at this and make sure that there's no burrs or anything on there, anything sharp. Clean that off. Now the new O-ring, you need to coat it with a little bit of power steering fluid first. So if you want, you can just dip it in here and coat that O-ring with power steering fluid to lubricate it, and then it goes right over the top. Also, you need to look down here and make sure this is clean. Feel inside of it with the end of your finger just to make sure there's no sharp points. And then we just put it back in place. Be careful putting it in. Try and get it in as square as you can. Start our bolt. Then you can use your swivel socket again. Now, just to make sure it's good and tight, I like to put a wrench on it as well. Just get a box end wrench and put it on there. Make sure it's good and tight. Now we've filled up our reservoir. We're going to put the lid back on. Now when we open this up, we introduced air back to the system again. So you need to fill the reservoir up, start the engine, run the wheels back and forth several times to get that air out, to bleed that air out. Now it actually might puke it out a little bit first while it's getting that air out. But after you do it a few times, this should just be able to run without aerating that reservoir. Now we've run it. You run your steering wheel back left and right all the way stop to stop several times. You could hear it was running much quieter, and we're not puking fluid out again this time. Look down inside. If you can look down inside, you see a few little bubbles in there, so you do need to work it a little bit until you get all the bubbles out. Now the noise should go all the way away after a little while. If it doesn't, you might actually have a bad power steering pump. Typically what you might see is someone seeing a power steering leak and they replace the power steering pump. They go through the process, they don't change that O-ring, and then the new power steering pump leaks, causes this problem. Well, rather than going back to the store and saying, well, I had a bad power steering pump, be sure and check this O-ring. Work this out first.